Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Dad Does Videos. The NFL 2021 season kicks off this weekend, so I thought I'd throw out my predictions. I already made a video for the AFC teams. You can go ahead and view that if you'd like, but let's talk about the NFC in this video. I'll go through each division with my predictions for the standings, and then later on, I'm going to throw out a separate video with playoff predictions, Super Bowl predictions, and end of the season award predictions. Let's start with the NFC North. Working our way from the bottom to the top, we've got the Bears, the Lions, the Vikings, and then the Packers. The Bears might contend for the worst team in the league this year. Now, their defense is going to hold them into games, assuming it's the same defense that we saw last year. But offensively, I think everybody's thinking, when is Justin Fields going to see the field? And how good is he going to be? We all know Andy Dalton is just keeping the seat warm for him there. And we know what Andy Dalton is, right? He's been around for years. He is good enough as a quarterback in the league, but not great. He seems to perform much better when the spotlight is not on him, but then you get into playoff situations or primetime games, and he doesn't seem to perform as well. I think he is, at this point, a good number 2 quarterback on your team, but not somebody you want as your starting quarterback in this league at this juncture in his career. David Montgomery, I think, is a top 10 running back. Allen Robinson is an excellent wide receiver. Cole Kmet, we think he's going to be a good tight end, but that's what you've got on offense. Now, none of those guys scares you, right? It's not Henry in the backfield. It's not Devontae Adams at wide out. It's not Kelsey at tight end. So they get by. The defense might win a game or two for them, but I think it's a struggle for them to see more than 5 or 6 wins this year. In Detroit, this could flip-flop. I could see Detroit being worse than the Bears this year. I'm not really sure. I think they're going to have similar records at the end of the year. You've got Jared Goff coming in for Stafford with the trade for the Rams. I think they're playing mostly for draft picks next year. Other than that, I'd love to see what DeAndre Swift does at running back now that Adrian Peterson is out of there and he is the guy. I hope they let him be the guy instead of giving Jamal Williams more touches. He is the running back from the Packers that came over to Detroit. I'm hoping he just stays in his third down role and they let DeAndre Swift do his thing. They lost Kenny Golladay. I don't really know what their plan is. They don't feel like they have a plan there. So again, 5 wins, maybe 6. They could flip-flop with the Bears in this division and it wouldn't surprise me at all. The Vikings, I feel like the Vikings are the same team every year. Kirk Cousins is good enough. He's a top 15 quarterback maybe in this league. He's conservative. He doesn't make terrible throws, but you want to see him be a little bit more aggressive. They've got 2 really nice wideouts in Thielen and Justin Jefferson. Dalvin Cook is a top 3 probably running back in the league. Their offensive line is good. Defense is hit and miss, so I expect them to contend for a wild card berth this year. 10-ish wins, maybe 11 if things go right for them, but that's about it. They're not going to the Super Bowl. Green Bay Packers. You've got Aaron Rodgers on your team. This guy is a top 10 quarterback all time, and in my opinion, the best quarterback of his generation. And yes, better than Tom Brady. I think they are going to run away with this division. I think Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams are 2 of the very best at their positions. I think their defense is a bit underrated from what we've seen in the past, so I think there's no reason why they can't get to the playoffs, win a few games, even contend for a potential Super Bowl berth later in the year. Okay, let's move on to the NFC West, which I think is going to be the toughest division in football and probably the toughest division to predict. All of these teams could move to different places in the division. I wouldn't be surprised if the 4th place team that I suggest is the division winner and vice versa. I've got the Cardinals at the bottom. I have the Seahawks in third. I have the Niners in second, and I have the Rams at the top of the list. This could go all over the place. I think all of these teams are good, and actually, I think all of them could make the playoffs, and it wouldn't surprise me. I think Kyler Murray has the potential to make the leap this year in terms of moving to the next level of quarterbacks. I know a lot of people think he's a top 10 quarterback right now. I'd probably put him in that 13-ish range, but I think this is the year that we could see him take the next step. They've got Hopkins still. They picked up A.J. Green, who, yes, is not the A.J. Green of 6 or 7 years ago, but still has the potential to be a very good wide receiver. They picked up James Conner. They have him and Edmonds as kind of the flipping-flopping at running back, which I think is solid. I think Conner just had a bad year with Pittsburgh. He was injured too, so I think that combination is going to work pretty well for them. They've got Christian Kirk as another wide receiver, so I think that offense is set up to be pretty good. I think the defense is actually underrated. I think they are going to be a lot better than what people expect. So even though I have the Cardinals in last place, I expect them to be 500, or excuse me, I expect the Cardinals to be better than 500. 10-ish wins, perhaps. Again, it could be 13 wins. I have no idea. This division is so hard to predict. Seahawks. They still have Russell Wilson. They still have DK Metcalf. They still have Tyler Lockett. They still have Chris Carson. That is a very, very good team with those guys on it. The defense is a far, far cry from where it was 7 or 8 years ago with all of those just absolute stud defenders on that team. So I think the offense is actually going to keep them in a lot of games this year, and they're going to have to score a lot of points for them to win. But you've got Russell Wilson on that team, so you can win a lot of games. I expect, again, 10, 11, 12-ish wins for them this year. And then the 49ers. They've got a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's going to be the starter this year unless something weird happens. I think we'll start to see Kyle Trask in games here and there just as a change-up. But that defense is strong. You know they're going to run the ball a lot with Shanahan. I think their wideouts are actually underrated. I think Deebo Samuel and Ayuk are really good. Kittle's just ridiculous at tight end. Their offensive line is good. Their defense is solid. If there aren't that many injuries, this is a team that should be contending for the division title. The LA Rams. So they get Stafford, which I admit is an upgrade over Jared Goff. Although, if you watch my video about quarterbacks, I still don't know what Jared Goff is, which sounds weird because he's been in the league more than 10 years. But was he a really, really good quarterback on a lot of bad teams? Or was he just a decent quarterback on a bad team? To me, if you are a great quarterback, you elevate your team. Now, that's not to say you can only do so much, right? Because you can. You're only one guy on that team. But with the exception of a year or two, he hasn't looked absolutely insanely good. So I'm interested to see what he can do in Los Angeles. I think he is an upgrade over Goff. I think their wideouts there are really good. I think Van Jefferson, as a rookie last year, was underrated. They have Robert Woods. They have Cooper Kupp. That is a really solid trio of wideouts. Their tight ends are good in Bigby and Everett, and their defense is absolutely solid, especially with Ramsey and Donald. So I expect them, with a combination of all those things, to win this division. I could see the Seahawks slipping up, perhaps, or the 49ers slipping up to get past them, depending upon how things go. But I expect the Rams to win and, again, contend for a berth in the Super Bowl later in the year. All right, so let's predict your NFC East division for the 2021 seasons. Let's start it off with the Eagles at the bottom. Then we're going to go Giants, Cowboys, Washington football team. So the Eagles. So let's talk a little about the Eagles. A lot of this hinges on how good Jalen Hurts is going to be. I could see them popping up or staying down there depending upon his talent level this year. I don't think that we saw enough last year to know whether he's going to be good or not. I guess that's why they brought in Joe Flacco, which we could have a whole other discussion about Joe Flacco at this point in his career. But Hurts is going to get the start at the beginning of the year, and we will see how he does. They got your Heisman Trophy winner in Smith. The defense, I think, is going to be a little bit better. Their wideouts certainly get an upgrade from having Smith. I expect a better year from Rigor, the rookie from last year. I think Miles Sanders is a very capable running back, but I think, again, depending upon how Hurts does, maybe 6 wins or so this year, especially with the new coach coming in. I don't know what to do with the Giants either. Again, we could flip-flop the Giants and Eagles all day for that matter. Is Daniel Jones going to make the leap this year? I mean, there are some games when you think, wow, I think he might start to put it together. And then there are other games where you think there's no way, and then he fumbles the ball away 78 times that game. They got Galladay. Who knows what we're going to get from Saquon Barkley? I don't know what to say about the defense. It's not that good. So again, 6-7 wins perhaps from the Giants this year. Cowboys. I've never been a big Dak guy. I think what we saw from him at the beginning of last year before he got hurt, and then the previous year, I can put him in my top 10 QBs right now. I still want to see him throw the ball all over the place against a good team when he has to do it. I feel like a lot of the yards that he passes for are against poorer defenses, so I want to see him do a little bit more against better defenses, but I think his career projection is on the rise. They certainly have Zeke. They have one of the better trios of wide receivers in the league in CeeDee Lamb and Cooper and Gallup. Offensive line is good. The defense really, really, really needs to get better. Even if they played at an average level, this team wins a couple more games. That defense was really bad last year. So I expect the Cowboys to be around a 9-win team, maybe 10 if the defense plays a little bit better this year. But I don't think they win the division. I think that goes to the Washington football team, mostly because of their defense. And they have some skilled weapons on offense. I would have preferred them to go get a number 1 quarterback if they could in free agency. I really don't see Fitzpatrick as a number 1 guy. Again, another one, and we've talked about him multiple times in these predictions. A lot of quarterbacks in this instance where there are number 1 quarterbacks today, but they shouldn't be. They're good, solid number 2 quarterbacks, and I think Fitzpatrick fits this mold perfectly. Taylor Heineke came in against the Buccaneers later in the year last year and played really, really well. It'd be interesting to see what he can do over a few more games to see if he might be the answer or not, but I don't think Fitzpatrick is your answer there. He's 39. What is this, his 9th team, something like that? Seems like a good guy, but he's not a number 1 quarterback in this league. Now, they do have some good offensive talent in Gibson and Scary Terry McLaurin and even Logan Thomas, their tight end. The defense is really good. That's why I expect them to win this division. Not by much, though. I feel like when they win it, it's going to be by a game or so over the Cowboys. And I could see the Cowboys, if the defense plays even better, winning this division, but I think the football team is going to be good this year. Okay, let's tackle the NFC South. In last place, I've got the Atlanta Falcons. Right above them, I have the Carolina Panthers. Then I have the Saints, and then the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Atlanta might vie for the worst team in the league this year. They still have a top 10, in my mind, quarterback in Matt Ryan and likely Hall of Famer. Calvin Ridley is a no doubt number 1 wideout, especially now that Julio Jones is gone. Kyle Pitts at tight end is supposed to be otherworldly. Other than that, though, there's not a ton going on there. I feel like ever since this team was at halftime in their Super Bowl loss against the Patriots, they've been terrible. And I have no idea what's happened. But I think after this season, we're going to see even more changes, even though they just changed coaches. It'll be interesting to see what happens after this year, because I really think this team's going to struggle to win 5 games, maybe 6 if they get lucky. I think the Carolina Panthers are probably a game or 2 above them. Sam Darnold, I believe, is an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater, but he's an average quarterback. I'd love to see what he can do getting outside of New York. This is going to be an interesting season for him, because I think we saw what he can do in New York. He was up, he was down, but he wasn't going to be the long-term answer there, and I think the change of scenery at least gives him another shot to see what he can do. Wideouts there are decent enough. You have, of course, McCaffrey at running back. I think this team struggles to make it to 500. Then you have the New Orleans Saints. They lose a top 5 quarterback in Drew Brees, and likely Hall of Famer in Drew Brees. I shouldn't even say likely, because he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. They have one of the best running backs in Alvin Kamara. I think everybody is really, really interested to see what happens with Jameis Winston this year. I think there couldn't have been a better place for him to go to after Tampa, because he could make throws. He has a really strong arm, but man, he'll throw those back-breaking interceptions too. And Sean Payton is a really good coach, and he's really good with quarterbacks. So the talent's there. I think if he can mold Winston a little bit, the Saints could be pretty good this year. And I'm glad they're giving him the opportunity instead of Taysom Hill at quarterback. I don't think he's the answer there. Their defense is good there. Michael Thomas will be back. I think he's supposed to miss 5 or 6 games at the beginning of the year. So their offense will be fine. I think it's more of a matter of Jameis Winston not making boneheaded throws, Kamara doing his thing, and the defense playing really well to get them to 11 or 12, perhaps, wins on the year. And then you have the Buccaneers. They're going to win the division. They're going to win 13 or 14 games, something like that. Tom Brady's going to have another good year, and we're all going to be like, oh my gosh, he's 44 years old. How is he doing this? They are loaded, right? Defensively and offensively, probably the best set of wideouts in the league. You have Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Godwin. They rotate Fournette and Jones at running back. The offensive line is good. The defense is solid. Any team that shuts down Mahomes like they did in the Super Bowl is really good. I don't see any reason why they won't win 14 games, 13 games, something like that, and win this division and go deep into the playoffs.